So today I'm going to be ranking all 28 episodes in the third season of Wizards of Waverly Place. Now, season 3 is not the best season of the show. However, I do think it's the most interesting season because it's very mixed. Like, some of the best episodes of the entire show are in season 3, and some of the worst episodes of the entire show are in season 3. But anyways, without further ado, let's start ranking all 28 episodes in season 3 of Wizards of Waverly Place.
Be careful not to mess with the balance of things, because everything is not what it seems.
Jerry, are you in here?
Very late! Very late!
My husband's a bug. I should have married Marty Stoller. I'd be a dentist's wife.
Okay, so in this episode, Alex leaves the wizard portal open, which causes wizard bugs to fly into the house. And then one of the wizard bugs bites Jerry, which causes him to turn into a giant bug and cause mayhem for everybody else. Now, I consider this episode to be the worst episode of the entire show. And that's mainly because it's just very gross to look at. Because like Jerry's a giant bug, and then he's like spitting this acid and like melting stuff. And you know my rule, anything that has to do with gross out humor automatically goes to the bottom of the list.
There's 3 monsters on Waverly Place. I detected them and reported them to the Monster Hunter Council.
Wait. 3 monsters?
Yes.
On Waverly Place?
That's exactly what I said.
Hey, you know who you should tell that to? Your vampire girlfriend and her 2 vampire parents that live on Waverly Place.
Okay, so in this episode, we follow Justin in his monster hunting arc. He's training to become a better monster hunter, but he screws up once he reports his girlfriend and her parents to the monster police. Now, I'm just gonna say it, the marker dress could not save this episode. Yeah, I didn't really like this episode, and I also didn't like how Justin was acting very clueless throughout the episode.
You shouldn't have taken my idea and not gone through with it. You should have gotten some rock bands.
Oh, so that's what this is about. I was trying to use music to stimulate positive behavior in our schools.
Music is supposed to be raucous and loud.
I'm pulling the plug on this.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so in this episode, Alex and Justin are fighting over what music should play in the school's cafeteria. And this episode does do one of the best jobs at showcasing the sibling rivalry between Alex and Justin. However, the reason I place this episode so low is that it's very simple, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But with this show, I need to experience like a roller coaster of emotions in one episode. And this episode just doesn't do that.
Whoa, what happened? What's going on?
You're having a dream.
Oh my gosh, I am!
Okay, so in this episode, there's a new superintendent and he fires Principal Larry Tate from his job. Then the new superintendent makes them wear uniforms, and then the kids try to get their old principal back. And the reason I place this episode so low is because the whole evil new principal thing has been done to death. Also, while the kids were trying to convince Larry Tate to come back, they turned everything into like a Wild West theme. And anything that has to do with the Wild West is just automatically uninteresting to me.
And this is us making an entrance.
And this is us shaking an entrance. And cue the applause. Mom? Dad?
Okay, so in this episode, we finally get to meet Harper's parents, who are like the circus performer type. And in my opinion, they were the most enjoyable part of the episode. Any scene that they were not in was just pretty uninteresting to me. And this episode as a whole is just pretty meh. But I will say I really do love Harper's parents, and I love how they're just as whimsical and out there as she is.
Nancy has been my girlfriend for a while.
Oh my gosh, girlfriend! Wait, okay, I'm sorry. What's wrong with her? Booger eater, bathroom snacker, snort laugher, what is it?
All that. That's what makes her great. She's super gross.
Oh, you're gonna be together forever.
Okay, so Max's secret girlfriend is the best episode of the show that's centered around Max. We see him getting really serious with the girl for the first time. However, for some reason, I just didn't like this episode. It probably had something to do with the fact that midway through the episode, Alex and Justin cast a spell to make themselves look old. And just like the Wild West thing, I find that pretty uninteresting.
This is causing too much strife from the pages come to life.
Oh my gosh! I cannot believe that you are here in front of me!
Hey, kids, this ain't no job for no farmer. This is a Captain Jim Bob job.
Okay, so in this episode we see Alex and Justin working together to create a comic book. And although I do like this episode and I enjoy seeing Alex and Justin work together, this episode really isn't all that special.
Harper, do not look at the monster, you'll faint again.
Okay, I'm just gonna keep my eyes shut, keep looking for the book club trophy, and let's get out of here. I found the trophy.
Harper, that's not the trophy, that's the meatloaf brain that Max.
Okay, so in the season 3 premiere, we see Justin create a monster in order to keep Alex out of his room. And I really like the Frankenstein references in this episode. And I like how things take a turn and the monster becomes Alex's friend and tries to get her to do cheerleading. And overall, I thought this is a pretty solid episode. It just wasn't one of my favorites, that's why it's down so low.
Aw, man, I'm not wearing an ascot. Alright, let's do this. He's not doing it.
Okay, so in this episode, Justin graduates high school, and as a present, Alex gives him a duplicate version of himself that has already been through 4 years of college. But the duplicate is like a hippie, and he doesn't care about anything, and he's pretty much the opposite of Justin's character. So there are two things going on in this episode, the graduation and the anti-Justin. But there are 2 episodes in the show that handle each topic better than this episode does. For example, the season 3 episode Positive Alex handles the whole anti-personality thing better than this episode. And the season 4 episode Wizards vs. Asteroids handles the whole graduation thing better than this episode does.
Harper, focus. We're looking for clues. Even the stapler is wrapped. By someone with nimble fingers and lots of downtime.
That's me!
It's not you, Harper.
So in this episode, somebody plasters photos of Justin all over Mr. Larry Tate's office, so Mr. Larry Tate automatically assumes that Justin did it, and he punishes him by giving him detention. Now, other than being the introduction of the new bad girl Stevie, this episode is not very memorable.
Hi, George. Great job leading the band at the game.
Yeah, okay, Alex, whatever.
And there it is. Acting like you don't appreciate a compliment from me. Come on, George. Let's just cut to the chase. There's a homecoming dance coming up, and we might as well just go together.
Nah, I don't think so.
So in this episode, we see Alex has a crush on a guy who doesn't like her back because of her negative nature. So Alex casts a spell on herself in order to make herself a more positive, happy person. And for some reason, this episode has always been one of the most memorable episodes of the entire show for me. But overall, this is a pretty decent episode. Seeing Alex as a cheerleader was hilarious. And I love that they got Austin Butler to guest star as Alex's love interest.
Is this your dollhouse we used to play with? Aw, it looks much bigger when we were little.
Yeah. Man. If only at age 5 I knew I was a wizard. I would have shrunk myself down and...
Okay, so in this episode, Alex creates an art studio in her old dollhouse, and then she shrinks herself down in order to live in the dollhouse. But then her parents sell the dollhouse while she's still in there, and the parents don't know that she's in there, and it's this whole big mess. Now, I don't have much to say about this episode other than it's very cute. Like, that's the only word I can use to describe this episode.
We should go to Sled Mountain. I heard they have the only sledding hills in the entire wizard world that go uphill.
It's the exact opposite direction they're supposed to go. That is so magical.
I'll race it there.
No, Alex, you can't leave. We're counting on you to help.
Relax, Justin. Harper's gonna be here. It's like my homework. She'll be doing my share of the work anyway.
So in this episode, Alex has been spending a lot of time with her new wizard friend Stevie, which causes Harper to feel like a third wheel around them. Now, this is one of my favorite episodes of the show that's centered around Harper, and it's been hinted several times throughout the show that Harper has fears about losing Alex as a friend, and I think it was nice that they made an episode that finally explores the topic.
Alex, come on, your mom wants to see you.
Oh, Harper. Thank goodness you're in here too. Okay, does everything seem backwards to you?
Just your shirt.
What?
Oh, come on.
So in this episode, Alex steps into a magic mirror and enters an alternate dimension where everybody agrees with her thoughts and opinions. Now, I think this was one of the most creative episodes in the season. I liked how everything in the alternate dimension was reversed, and overall, I just really liked how this episode took advantage of the fact that season 3 is the first season of the show that's filmed in HD.
What? Hey, Zeke, I really like what... Harper, working on a Miss So, this is lame-o Vato does not sound like a date.
Okay, so in this episode, we see Alex trying to push Harper and Zeke to become a couple. And any episode that is about Zeke, I automatically love because I think his character is so entertaining. I also really liked how we could hear people's thoughts in this episode, which is something that the show hasn't done before.
Hello? Excuse me, could you give me a hand?
Shakira?
Yeah. Listen, I'm on tour with the Harlem Globetrotters and our tour bus broke down. And the only way to fix it is by singing a duet with a fan. Are you a fan?
So in this episode, Shakira guest stars, and I love Shakira and I love this show. So seeing the two worlds collide was amazing. And I love the scene where Shakira and Alex were singing one of Shakira's songs together. And this episode with Shakira is already amazing. But then they have Uncle Kelbo come and guest star too. It was just wonderful. I love this episode.
Look what I found in the area where Alex hides things area.
Well, it's time to move that area again.
A page torn out of the Cheater's Book of Spells.
Daddy, I think you and I should probably talk about that alone. Not that I know what that is, or...
It describes a spell to help someone finish a marathon.
So in this episode, Harper wins a marathon, but then she later finds out that Alex used magic on her feet in order to help her win. And this episode is one of my favorites that has to deal with Alex and Harper's friendship. I also have a very vivid, random memory of myself watching this particular episode at a cousin's house a long time ago.
Get enough wizards who are behind in their family wizard competition to perform a spell at the same time. Oh, it will melt down the power distributor in the Hall of Transfers. Then... no wizard will ever have to give up their powers again.
Okay, so in this episode, Alex finds out that her new wizard friend Stevie is actually evil. And what I like about this episode was the whole concept of trust. Alex went along with her evil friend Stevie, and Justin believed that Alex was turning evil just like Stevie. But Harper had trust in Alex and believed that she was going to do the right thing at the end, and she was right.
As you know, the Waverly Place Halloween Fair is a very important event for us tonight. And frankly, your haunted house has been a disappointment since...
forever.
The association took a vote. And we're taking away your haunted house unless you make it scarier this year.
Normally I wouldn't agree with people in ties, but Dave's got a point.
Okay, so in this episode, the Russos must make their haunted house scary this year for Halloween, or else they won't be able to do any more haunted houses for Halloween ever again. And this is the first and only Halloween-themed episode of the entire show, and I was actually surprised that it took so long for the show to make a Halloween-themed episode, because this is a show about wizards and all other types of magical creatures, so I just figured a Halloween episode would come more sooner, but I still really love this episode.
I can't stand to see Justin like this.
Well, I can't stand to see Justin hardly at all. But I've gotten used to it, and so should you, because Juliet is not coming back.
Or is she?
No, she's not. Didn't you see her hobble off into the woods? I think Mason ate her.
Okay, so in this episode, we see Justin struggling to move on from his ex-girlfriend Juliet, and I thought this episode was very sweet. I also liked how Bridget Mendler came back and reprised her role as Juliet, even though she was busy filming Good Luck Charlie at the time. I also really liked the directing and the editing in this episode. The directors and editors really went all out for season 3.
Hey, Teresa.
Ernesto! Oh, you look great!
I know. And you still look like you're 27 years old.
I know!
So in this episode, it's Teresa's birthday and her brother Ernesto comes to visit. And something that I've always loved about this show was its representation. In this episode, we got to explore the Latino culture. I loved how Teresa's family sang happy birthday to her in Spanish. And I really liked how they got Wilmer Valderrama to be Uncle Ernesto. Because they mentioned Uncle Ernesto a lot throughout the show, and I was curious who they were going to get to play him. And I'm glad that it was Wilmer.
Okay. Are you guys ignoring me because you're planning a surprise party for me?
Oh, here's some more shirts.
Justin, what's going on? Why isn't anyone talking to me?
So in this episode, Alex is under a truth spell and she can't stop telling the truth. This eventually gets the entire school to dislike her. And even though this concept has been done to death, I really like this episode because we get to see Alex Russo be vulnerable. And that always makes for the best episodes of the show. Also, this episode was written by David Henry, who is the actor that plays Justin Russo on the show. And this episode was directed by David DeLuise, who plays Jerry Russo on the show. And I thought that was pretty cool.
I really need help on my wizard lessons, and so I can catch up to Justin.
Catch up to Justin? Well, then you're gonna need to change who you are. You're gonna need to do what Justin does.
Harper, I've spent my entire life ignoring him. I don't know what he does.
Hey, then I can help you. There's no bigger expert on Justin than me.
So in this episode, we see Alex trying to become a better wizard by studying more about wizardry. And I really like this episode because it shows Alex maturing and becoming more of an adult by taking the initiative to better herself. We also see Justin level up and become a monster hunter. And we see Max get a conscience that helps him with his wizard studies. So yeah, everybody in this episode was just leveling up. And I thought this episode's placement as one of the first few episodes of season 3 was excellent.
Let's not panic.
Right.
Mommy! Mommy, please! Mommy, please!
Yep, it's soundproof.
Yeah.
So in this episode, Justin and his vampire girlfriend Juliet are stuck inside of a museum exhibit, and they have to find a way to get Juliet out before sunrise because when the sun comes out, she'll melt because she's a vampire. So the only way for Juliet to get out is to go with the mummy, and that forces Juliet and Justin to part ways. And I really like this episode because it focuses on the relationship between Justin and Juliet, and that has always been one of my favorite parts of the show. This episode is also one of the most memorable episodes of the entire show.
Knock on the door and see if they know anything.
Come on in, it's open.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't you mind that. Pa's gonna fix it as soon as it's our turn for the town screwdriver.
So in this episode, Alex and Mason reunite after parting ways in the Wizards vs. Werewolves episode. Now this episode is a 1 hour long special, and something that I've always liked about this show is that it only made an episode an hour long special if it was absolutely necessary. I like how this episode has the country wizards. I like how Alex is insecure when Mason is stuck in this transitional zone between human and werewolf. And I like how we see flashbacks of their relationship as Alex and Mason dance along to A Year Without Rain.
These are water balloons.
Ah, so you've heard of them. And here's how Americans use them. All right, victim in sight, and bombs away. Hi!
So in this episode, Alex meets Mason for the first time and the two bond. And I know I said I don't like Mason as a character, but he is his most likable in this episode. Also, the kissing in the rain scene between Alex and Mason was just everything.
Jerry, what's going on? I don't like this.
I don't know. Everybody, let's get out of here. Ah! This way.
In the season 3 finale, we see that the secret about wizards has been exposed to the general public, and I really like this episode because throughout the show everybody was so worried about the secret getting out, so I was always wondering what would happen if the secret actually did get out, and it was fun to see how everything played out. Also, this episode is one of the show's best season finales, and I do feel like with this show the season finales get better with each season. Also, this episode leaves off on a cliffhanger, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, my sweetie. Oh, I know how much it hurts when your heart gets broken. But time will heal it. And on the bright side, we're all really happy to see you have feelings.
Now, finding where the other 27 episodes in the season fit on this list was hard, but finding out where this episode goes was not hard at all. Wizards vs. Werewolves goes straight to number 1 because it is top 2 best episodes of the entire show. We also get to see Alex Russo cry for the first time on the show, and I told you whenever Alex is vulnerable it always makes for the best episodes of the entire show, and overall this episode is just iconic. Anyways, that's my ranking for all 28 episodes of the 3rd season of Wizards of Waverly Place. Thank you so much for watching.